Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of Beyond the Eclipse. I'm here with V again.
Hi.
And this is a bit of an impromptu episode as currently we have not been able to record Kino for 7 months.
Almost 9. We could have gestated a child in that time.
So, we're shoving one of these in here as an apology. We're very sorry. Note that we have now recorded another episode, but we're recording this like right at the back end of that because that's going to take some editing work for Neil. So.
Yeah. Rather than giving Neil the horrible task of trying to crank out a Kino episode in like a couple of days, we decided to record one of these because it's a lot easier for all of us all around to edit and put together. So yeah, this is more of an apology Beyond the Eclipse than a planned, scheduled and maintenance Beyond the Eclipse. But here we go, episode 11.
That's where we are. Let's just kind of dive into the episode. It starts with the crew kind of climbing out of the sewers.
Sewer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like you, like as somebody who hasn't listened to these episodes, like now it's been probably like also 6 or 7 months since we did it back Beyond the Eclipse. I was a little bit lost, like, oh shit, there wasn't a lot of feed in. I'm just supposed to know what the fuck's going on here. So, not very episodic. This would not do great on cable television back in the 90s.
No. This is how you can tell it's not scripted. It's not perfectly structured. Like that's the joys of TTRPGs and actual plays. It's like we can need to assume you know a little bit, and that definitely comes across as like not written or scripted for TV or anything like that. Because like it would have like a nice little bow on it of like people walking over towards where. Because I think in this episode they go towards like the shit shack as like their new kind of temporary basis of just like like they would talk about the things that just happened. And they definitely say each other's names at least once. That's just not happening.
Which is, the beauty of these, like, unscripted dramas. You can just, like, tell. You can feel the like, kind of, you are supposed to be on the ball. We're not here to handhold you.
I think, was it 6 or 7 years on, there's definitely a degree of bingeability needed.
Yes.
You need to be able to know where we are 200 and something episodes in the future.
We should make like TLDR episodes every 50 episodes or so. Like,
oh no, it's hard enough trying to get the episodes out as it is, man.
I know. No. But yeah, the episode starts with Caden dragging the team into the shit shack and interrogating them about like the visions that Dallas had kind of forced into everybody's brain.
Yeah, I kind of had like the idea like when like, because Arch and I talked about like, hey, so what's the repercussions of like seeing these things? Like, could this be something where we get to have an opportunity to see some of their past? I'm like, yes, because one of the kind of like things that we talked about like a while back when we were making the show, and the show that shall not be named had a really nice little mechanic in it of being able to show backstories and like scenes, and we didn't really have that. So we thought, okay, we'll lean on like Lafian's ability to see a little bit into the past to be able to do that. So Arch and I, after the mirror scenes, like we talked like back and forth a little bit about like, how is this going to work? Like, what kind of like feedback there may be with that? I'm like, okay, well let's try this. So either one of us came up with the idea and we decided to run with it. And then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, if we're going to use the mind link, Caden is at the center of the mind link, so there's no way he wouldn't see that, right? I'm like, okay, great, yeah. So he'd feed back into that vision, so they see a little bit about his past, a little like backdrop for him too. But it was also just like I'm imagining Caden going about his day, like dealing with Lindrin. All right, gotta go off and talk to Eyþór about something. I'm gonna go do this. I'm right in the middle, like say, like eating lunch or something. He suddenly just has all these flashes of these murder scenes or these death scenes. I'm just like, that's fucking wild. Like, he has no context whatsoever as to why this came. So I was just like, he has to react to that. Like, there has to be something there. So yeah, him interrogating them is more like a, what the fuck? And also, oh my God, please don't judge me. Even though he knows that a lot of them are like straight up and up murderers or killers, accidental and or otherwise. It was still just like, yeah, he'd have thoughts and feelings about this. So that's why he basically interrogated them. And also to get them to talk about what happened.
Yes.
So it's like you can see it, but like there's no context involved. So getting Lafian to talk about what his experience with killing was, and getting seeing Raoul's other kills, the things he is kind of guilty for, just getting them to talk about that is like, yeah, Caden is a perfect vehicle for that right now.
Yes, you can definitely tell if you think about stories in the kind of like, oh, we need this character to talk to this person so that they can tell them about this, like because human beings don't utter out loud their deepest, darkest secrets. Like they need to be prompted. And you can kind of like as an experienced role player and as a kind of a movie TV buff, I can like see Caden in that moment. He's like, "All right, guys, we're having exposition. Come on!" Like, and that's not what he says, but that's like as somebody who has like watched too much TV, I'm like, "Oh, I know what's going on. Yeah, let's get into this. This is great. This is great. You have set this up very well for him to actually push them on this. Like, this is very entertaining." Yeah. We in this episode you reveal Caden's kind of like I don't know what you'd call it, dark secret.
Yeah, he's kind of like biggest guilt, really.
Yeah, biggest guilt.
You know, regardless of the situation, like, you know, it was a choice of like losing like both people he cared about in life or killing one to save the other. Like, it's still something he's still incredibly guilty about, even though it can be like justified and is ultimately like, yeah, the right decision that also Rose's wife wanted to have take place so that their child can be brought into the world. It's still something he carries a lot of guilt about. He was still the one that ended that life. So for him, that's like his biggest guilt, his biggest like hangover, something he just does not want to have to talk about and was much like them, very much forced to have to relive those memories.
Did you just say Caden's wife's name there real quick?
Yeah, Rose.
I'm sure it's come up a couple of times, but it is one of those things like Squash's real name. It's like, yeah, it gets uttered from time to time, but nobody really says it.
Yeah.
I'm never like upset when like I say Dawn and either Casey, Neil, or Arts just goes like, who? I'm like,
who the fuck is that?
Squash's real name.
That's
whatever.
why I thought it was always really funny to have Taylor go Mr. Squash. Like, of course Taylor isn't going to know.
Yeah. But yeah, you kind of push through that, and I'm just gonna quickly ask that question, like, why? Like, why did you decide on this for Caden?
So I decided like a while back that I wanted to have like a single father figure, right? And that's what Caden is like. That's what was always there. Because like I grew up around a lot of single parent families, and you know they do the Lord's work in trying to raise children on their own. And for me, I'm like I kind of wanted to figure out a way that I didn't want there to be any beef between him and Taylor's mum. I didn't want there to be like there's a big argument and like one day everyone just goes, oh, actually, you know, maybe Taylor's would be safer if they were with their with their other parent. I'm like, I don't want any of that shit. I don't want any of that. Like, it's a person in a tough situation. So I kind of ended up on like she'd die in childbirth. That's kind of where I was at. But then I was a bit later on thinking about it. I was like, no, like let's give Caden like a bunch of like solid reasons or solid things to like overcome. One of which is being like, like he had to do what he had to do. So that's kind of where I settled on that, really. Yeah.
Then we move to the other people's murders, and let's just like get the quickest one out of the way, which is Raoul. It is just like a dwarf in a boxing ring. His fists are up. And then we just move on. And everybody's just like, yeah, know what happened.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Yeah. I mean, that's like, everybody knows the situation. Everybody knows it's the fourfold. Whether it was an accidental killing because the fight went too far or whether it was purposefully intended. And I think later on we find out some of these kills are purposely intended, but I don't think we do right here. But like, yeah, it's like, it's a thing that makes sense. Okay, well, that happened. All right, cool. Moving on.
Yeah, then we go to Sultana, who's this is the murder she's in jail for, right? Like,
correct.
She has a bunch of other murders under her belt, right? Like,
yes. By this point, like, I believe there are a couple of murders, either directly related to the people who actually like kidnapped her wife and Benno, or they were on the way to get people who were involved. For example, Rannick being a stepping stone to where Honorina is. So, like this is the one specifically that Sultana is in jail for.
Have you imagined, I wish Casey was here, like, have you imagined that Sultana's murder spree, it was mostly unplanned. Like, it was, what is it called? The Bonnie and Clyde, when they just kind of drove from gas station to gas station robbing people? Like,
I don't think so. I think Sultana is like so very like set on vengeance. That like Sultana's pathway to getting to Dravos and getting to everybody involved in it is like quite like, okay, this person would know where they are. I'm going towards them. Okay, I've run down that lead and that person is now dead. All right, on to the next one. Like, so very singularly focused on it. It isn't just like randomly murdering like people left and right. Like, no, there is a path and Sultana is on it.
Yeah. If Sultana was a character with bad memory, there would be like a notepad, somebody with like names on it. Like, yeah, okay, I get that.
Like a proper like list that just gets longer and longer.
Just something she probably kept in her head. It's one of those things, like, I've always kind of wondered if it was strategic, like she made a list of people she was going to kill until she would go after Dravos, because like Dravos was going to be the like
fucking Kill Bill.
yeah, like it was the climax list. It's like, I'm going to work my way to the top of this goddamn list, and when Dravos is dead, I'm going to be so fucking happy.
If you haven't caught up so far, like massive spoilers for what I'm about to say, but like, yeah, there are people on that like specifically involved in the kidnap that are in jail or haven't been found. Like there are people like on the way to Dravos that like Sultana never got to because Sultana got way too involved in, you know, saving the world. Yeah. Vengeance, a personal vengeance, had to take a sidestep to that, and like the ultimate goal, like whether Sultana gets to Dravos or not is like still TBD. So like there are people involved in it that are still, they're not mentioned because they are not important necessarily in the context of this story. I'd always like to have seen Sultana go after them all. Like, next on my hit list, I've done with Honorino, I've dealt with whatever shit is going on there, on to the next one. But obviously that's just not the way story goes. Like, there are more important things.
This is definitely something I would love to hear Sultana get pushed on when we get close to the end of the story. Is the like, okay, you're about, like, if she succeeds, again, spoilers, 200 episodes plus, if she succeeds in her goddess plan, like, is she allowed to use her goddess powers to just go around and get a couple of beefs out of the way? Like what are the rules? Somebody get that
I can't answer that.
Goddess of paperwork in here. It's something for the future. But I really like the description. I really like the story. Now, I have to ask, like, you kind of dive into the murder of the councilman impromptu, like. Casey seems to like pick up the ball instantly. Do you remember if you went like, all right, Casey, I want you to roleplay this out with me, and Neil just cut that? Or if Casey was just like, I want to play out one of my murders. You do not get to take this away from me.
No, I think this is another one of those where I just like especially with dream sequences, right? Because I can come up with the weird, wild and wacky stuff, but they're not quite the same personal level as if I let you guys go for them. If I'm like, all right, what do you dream about? What's going on? If you answer with like, oh, I'm not really dreaming of anything, great, I'll go nuts. But if like you have an idea, then I'll go with it. And this is another one of those we've actually jumped forward a little bit in the episode, but we'll jump back a bit later because it's kind of in the same topic around Sultana.
Yeah.
Of like, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like, I have a wisdom save coming up because Adet is still trying to reach out to Sultana because Adet can't do it in a traditional manner. I'm still trying to reach out through dreams, and hence the wisdom rolls. And I was like, I know how it's going to come in. Like, there's a series of like information I'm going to drop. There's going to be feelings. There's going to be sentences. There's going to be phrases that are repeated. Like, these are like the building up of the dreams until like the final revelation or something happens that it gets revealed to be like Adet is still alive and out there. And in this. And in this particular situation, I'm like, all right, Sultana, what are you dreaming of? And Casey's like, I just dream of murder. And I honestly was not expecting that. I'm like, all right, then I guess we'll go into it. Fuck it, let's go into it. Let's describe what's going on with Rannoch and that kind of like whole shenanigan. And like, like Casey's usually pretty on the ball, like especially when you have like a one-on-one. Like Casey's like switched on, so like very much being switched on to Sultana and the murder dreams. Just, I fucking went with it. I'm like, this is great, and I love that kind of shit. I
have to mention it just because I laughed so hard. It's when you ask her, oh, Sultana, what kind of dream are you having? Sorry, guys, we've skipped like like a couple of minutes of
well, we're staying on the same conversation about Sultana's murder. It's kind of the same, but this is the dream sequence I think you're chatting about.
But it got such a fucking kick out of me that like Casey, you asked like, oh, Sultana, what is Sultana dreaming about? And Casey goes, she's probably dreaming of sweet murder. And you can hear you go like as you're like drinking what I'm assuming is a can of Lucozade.
Probably. It was that time in the morning. It probably was Lucozade.
And your reaction, which I've written down verbatim, okay, wow, all right. And like in my head, I was just like, that was V being given a gift of like, oh, I get to do like, it's not a lovey-dovey dream I have to corrupt. It's not gonna be like I'm at school naked and I'm late for class dream. It's such a like outside the box dream, and I think in that moment you were like, yeah, that's fun. Thank you, Casey.
Yeah, there's sometimes like especially if I throw things out there, or more importantly, if I don't throw things out there and you guys you guys decide to do something I'm not expecting, but it's such a perfect vehicle for me delivering information or plot points or backstory or like throwing the cat amongst the pigeons, like because I'm not too precious about the particular order that things get revealed. I mean, I like to hold them back for suspense reasons, but if you guys learn a certain plot point early, I'm not really that fussed. Like, I'll just have to live with it. Yeah. So I really love it when you guys are digging for something else, but I can definitely put a plot point on it. I love it so much because then I don't have to try and force it in there, but it feels like a more natural discovery. So anytime when it's like, oh yeah, I'm dreaming a murder, I'm like, okay, I can use this. I can talk about the murder of the person. Great, excellent, fuck it, yes. So I'm always on board for that kind of shit. I always find that fun.
Yeah. But to go back before Sultana went to sleep, we have like a little like interaction between Sultana and Balance. Sultana is really pushing Balance about his death scene.
Yeah,
and I genuinely found it so entertaining. Where like Art's just like, no, I don't want to talk about it. Let me rest it. I'll tell you later. And Casey's,
fine.
They genuinely go into the microphone like, they do this like grunt, and I love it when Arch is just like, leave me alone, you fucking weird ass murder dwarf.
Yeah. Like it's fun. I also like it. Like again, like not me having like this. I think it's the strength of like all four of you at the table. Actually, all five of you when you count Kessler too, of like poking at each other to get those backstories out, because there's only so much I can do, and there like the backstories that you'll have written in different ways and different characters are like really rich, and they have so much wealth to them, or they could be easily expanded on by like just a conversation. And I always love to see that when you guys are doing that to each other, or you're finding out about, because then I get to sit back. First of all, it's really good just watching you guys play, because I also get to be an observer and actually kind of play my own world, and also because it means my prep lasts longer, so I'm always happy to let that shit go, especially when I'm keeping my eye on the time. I'm like, maybe I don't have quite enough. Oh, you guys are going? Great. I'll sit back and I'll let this play out, and I also get to learn things about your characters too. But yeah, that's I like watching that, and it's fun. And I think that the way that Arch decided to have Lathian show the core group like exactly what happens and that whole memory, and Arch just like happily just like, yep, let's role play through it. Let's go. And was like fucking there for it. Right, because we discussed previously, or at least Archer sent me hey, so there's like this like an Inverna, like blow her head off, and that's why I'm in jail, and like that was kind of the gist of what we had discussed and what was in the backstory. There's a little bit more here and there, but give or take, that was what it was. And then I was like, all right, I guess this is again another beautiful opportunity that I could start dropping things in. I was like, okay, great, that's another great thing. And I was listening back to it and talking about like, oh yeah, so there's like explosions and wizards in the background. I'm like, yep, that's Dachin. I already knew that was Dachin. I knew the second if he was going to ask, okay, tell me about the wizards, tell me about this one. Yep, you remember a guy named Dachin. Like, that's it. That would have been there. But alas, he didn't know to ask that question. It is the not knowing what you don't know. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And also listening back to that, my God, I think I had issues.
I don't know what issues you think you had because, like, let's talk about it a little bit. So Arch has his character like mind link with them, and he kind of lets them relive his version of the story.
Yeah.
And I was genuinely in awe. I'd forgotten how well you played that. And the music Neil adds underneath it really fucking elevates it.
Yeah. Like, damn, my notes in here are like, holy shit, Neil. Because I haven't listened to that scene in ages. And it has like a really nice, beautiful melody. And then when the darkness comes, there's like a real 28 Days Later feel to the music. And that music always puts me on fucking edge. I'm like, Neil, this is amazing.
In a house in a sunset. Oh, I don't remember. In a House in a Heartbeat. That's the name of the song. And I was like, I always find it funny because I don't find it funny. I always feel like Balance and not Niverna?
Yeah, Niverna's his friend, yeah.
Yeah. Always when you talk about them, my brain goes to the stereotypical high school sweethearts, they're gonna be dating, blah, 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 blah. So it's always a curveball in my head when Niverna goes like, so, I'm getting married. And it's every time I get that like, oh, that hurts. Oh, it sucks, man. And I don't think Arch intended it, but you can kind of hear in like Arch's voice like, oh, great. Congratulations. Like,
I think there's like two reasons for that. Like, first of all, Arch had already said like, hey, like I like the idea that people think that they're dating or that they're going to be together, but clearly they're not. Like, he's not interested in it. She's not. They're literally just friends. I'm like, okay, great. Then she's hot for teacher. Fuck it. Yes, I love it. So when we got to do this bit, obviously Arch is expecting me to like come up with some like big something, and I'd always had in the back of my brain that like she's clearly with Talvin. Like, that's what's happening here. Like, they're three close friends. We'd already talked about that as a friendship for them. So I think the oh, you are might be because I don't think I'd ever told him that.
Yeah.
I think that might be genuine surprise.
I don't blame him. I'm probably reading a little bit too much into it, but it was just like I always get that feeling of like a dude standing next to his little crush, and the crush is going like, "Oh, I got a new boyfriend." The crush is the guy's just like, oh, "Great."
Balls.
but I know that's not what he was going for, but it's just whatever. But I genuinely I love so much that you introduced in the background there's like explosions, and it's so like, as somebody who knows what's coming, it's really nerving. Like, it really gets you like tense. And
yeah,
like, why did you decide to have explosions cover up whatever her question was?
Because I didn't want him to know what she was asking. Like, I didn't want him to know at that point, like, what was being said. Like, the whole idea of, like, Marnak being, like, basically planted in him at this particular, like, birthday ritual celebration, whatever it is. It's supposed to be very disorientating. It's supposed to be very, like, disorientating. I think it's probably the best word for it. It's very overwhelming. And for him to like have like all these overwhelming like surges of magic and like emotions and feelings and power, to then have another source right at the moment just kind of like also asking you questions on top is like, it's so overwhelming. I wanted that to also like be there. So there'll always be like a question in his mind of like, what was she trying to ask? What was she trying to say? It's like, I just wanted to keep that little bit to one side for her. So if they were ever to meet up again, which I kind of had a plan for maybe, which definitely got changed with the crossovers coming up. So like I just wanted always there to be like a little something to one side. And that was the questions. But the explosions were there purely because first of all, I thought it was cool. I always wanted there to be fireworks when this kind of stuff happened because I thought it would be kind of like explosions in the air and porn in Vienna. But also because Dacian is like basically doing two spells at this point. He is ripping Marnak out of Lisbeth, and he's also putting Marnak into someone he could talk to. I.e. Balance at this point, or Queen Glengareth, as eventually would happen. So that's kind of why they were there. Yeah.
No, I genuinely recommend it. If you haven't listened to the scene, it starts at 57:50. I genuinely recommend go back and listen to it. It is good. I have the shit written down. If you roll back a little bit, there was a scene that happens before the crew goes to sleep, and it's between Raoul and Caden.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, like, do you know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think it's the one where, like, Caden basically like, all right, guys, I'm going home now. Why would I sleep here at your house? Like, if Raoul like, brings that up. And, like, yeah, I didn't expect the scene to come up. That was just Raoul following him out. I'm like, all right, what the fuck is going on here? Yeah.
So Raoul starts harassing Caden about not trusting... Oh, God, I have a name. Kythea, thank you. Not trusting Kythea. And the phrase he uses is, you could cut off one of my fingers and I'd still be able to count on one hand the amount of people that have given me the benefit of the doubt. It's an interesting phrase. It's a good one, I think. And he kind of grills him. Why? Like, I'm assuming in your mind, you know the world, the people should be distrustful of anybody who doesn't look like they should be from this continent. Why did you decide to play it up with Caden?
Well, like, so if you put yourself in, like, kind of roughly Caden's position, you've had all this, misinformation that has been ingrained in your culture for the last, like, however many thousand years. So when he sees a tiefling, of course his brain is going to go, like, for example, right now, if, like, a purely formed, like, tiefling appeared in front of you, actually, okay, you may be a terrible example because you're from Iceland, but, like, yeah, like, if a fully formed, like, you know, tiefling appeared, you would probably think demon or devil, and you'd probably run a fucking mile.
It's a Pookie. She's going to kill my cows.
Yeah, Pookie is going to kill all your cows. Of course, you're going to be fearful of that because you don't know anything else. So, like, yeah, I always had in mind that, you know, Caden would be quite reserved on that. Like, he'd always be, like, a little fearful because it's something he doesn't know. I mean, he's been, like, taught and trained to be otherwise. But, you know, he is, you know, very well aware that, you know, Raoul exists and Raoul isn't an asshole and, like, he is actively trying to be a better person. So it wasn't necessarily a massive playing up. It was just kind of, like, trying at least to follow what this world would perceive.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, like, he's known Kythea for a couple of, like, days or weeks or whatever it is at this point. So he knows that, like, you know, she's not a problem. And, like, yeah, they talk things out. And, like, you know, that's something that they have dealt with off to one side. So, like, it was just, I don't know, I think I kind of explained it fairly well. Like, yeah, he wasn't taught very well, and he's just a little scared.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that if you had an endless amount of time, it would be so rich to the world to see the crew kind of deal with the strife that would come from these different people being introduced to different places.
There's, like, because I live so much in the world, like, I spend a lot of time thinking about it. I spend a lot of time in, like, particular characters' heads. Like, you know, I think I've mentioned this either before on this, but I've definitely spoken to you about it. Like, when I end a session, whomever PC or NPC, that I've been, like, interacting as the most or has the most, like, impact, I tend to spend a lot of time between sessions thinking about them and, like, I treat them as much as my own PC as I would, like, if my own PC, for example, on Dark Dice. I think about them a lot from their point of view. So, you know, it's good if you can get me thinking about, for example, dating at the end of a session, because then plans get far worse. But if I'm kind of stuck in the head of, like someone else, like Caden, for example, then the world becomes a little bit more built about what he sees and what he goes out there. And I like, as much as, like, when you're playing at home, like, and you think about, like, scenes that you want to come up and they never come up the way you want them to because, you know, we're only one person. I'm always sad that some of those scenes don't get to come out. Like, I would love, like, for example, if this was a TV series or a manga or whatever the fuck it is, or an anime, you would see that scene between Caden and Kythea, and that would be dope as fuck. But you guys don't get to see that. That just gets to live in my head.
Yeah. But yeah, it's very, very cute to see Raoul and Caden kind of interact, and Raoul kind of push Caden on this. It really sells that they've had, like, more of a relationship for a very long time. That Raoul, like Raoul seeing Caden be, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Judgmental.
Yeah,
he like next time he meets him, he's like, "Hey, buddy, what was that about?" Like, dude,
hey, buddy, what the fuck is going on?
You're better than this.
He's like, I know I am. I'm just scared.
Spooky out there, man. Demons. Yeah. And then they, like, split off. And everybody goes to sleep. Sultana takes the best room with the least amount of mold and holes. And I found it very entertaining that Sultana is selfish at this point, because I believe that at this point in, like, 200 episodes in, she's so much more nicer to the crew.
Yeah. Like this is obviously like them still trying to like feel their way around like their characters' interpersonal relationships, and obviously they're still quite standoffish from each other. Like that's just, and that's something that will definitely come up in a couple of future episodes. I think it is like I would love to be able to talk about the behind the scenes of how we got to certain scenes, but look, that's future us's thing. But yeah, definitely at this point, it's very like selfish, very kind of like blown up of like what you want other people to see you as. I think that's definitely what this crew is going through at that point. But I also love the shit shack. I know it doesn't have that name yet, but I love the shit shack. I love the idea of this completely rundown crap hole, and the only reason that room is bigger is because the holes are bigger in it. Like,
it's so dumb.
I don't know what it is. It's so dumb, but here we are.
It's fantastic. Then Kythea comes in late at night and Balance bothers her. I found it like I started thinking about it, and it's like this feels like really well set up, but I know you didn't do it. Kythea being a love interest for Balance, an object of affection.
That was not my intention when she came in. Mm-hmm.
It is an incredibly interesting idea because, like, this feels like something you would write in a show. You have a charismatic character like Balance, who has the he has the object of ire from the love interest, and it's going to create this kind of strife between them as she tries to figure out, am I angry at Balance or am I angry at the thing in his head? Do I trust him? Do I like? It is an incredibly clever thing, and I just wrote down what was it? Very interesting idea to make Kythea distrust Monarch when Balance is like he's trying to get a friendship with him. It's just interesting dynamic. It's a love triangle that you don't expect.
Yeah, definitely not set up. But yeah, like I think I mentioned this before. Like Kythea is purely here because Tamara told her to be here. Like, hey, like the world is falling apart. Something has happened. Yeah, I'm somehow involved. So is this other person who may be going through the same thing. For the love of God, I think you need to go help them. So she's naturally quite distrustful of Monarch. You know, whatever entity was in her sister's shared body ultimately killed her. So like, of course she's going to be upsetted by that. And if she does have a crush on Nafin, which she does, like she has to deal with the fact that if this entity leaves or decides to take over or any of those horrible things, like she's kind of fucked. She's already too far down the rabbit hole. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. And it was like listening back, I'd forgotten how like in those early days, how they were interacting and like, oh no, yeah, like it's not coming out of nowhere. There is like a genuine appreciation of intelligence, I guess, and planning and thinking these things through. So it's like, oh no, yeah, it's because it's been so long since I've been thinking in Kythea's head, like all these emotions started rolling back listening to it. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, fuck.
Yeah. No, I think I think it's easy 200 episodes in to kind of forget what their click was, but it really is like that. Like search for knowledge, the idea of investigation and understanding, and like I imagine the two of those idiots like just talking about stupid shit way into the night, and it's way too cerebral, but they think it's hot foreplay.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, it was generally wild listening back to like particularly like that scene with Kythea, and like it was generally like there was a whole rush of like emotions and thoughts coming back. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I'd forgotten all this shit. Like it kind of clarified immediately. Like, oh yeah, now I remember this happening and why that happened and where they went from here and why she decided to say this at this certain point. Like, damn, it's so weird.
Yeah, but they hang out a little bit, and then Kythea goes off to sleep. And in the morning, Balance is being creepy and wants to learn how to cook. I found you guys to be very unfair to him. I feel so bad for him, but goddamn it, was I not laughing? Like it's very like I'm laughing, and I know I would have done the exact same thing. I know, but I feel so bad for Arts. He's like, oh, I want Balance to want to learn to cook. He wants to improve himself, and Kythea, being the chef, like he's gonna be watching her. Everybody's just like, really, bro? Really, bro? Really?
Yeah, like I always get the feeling like especially in like those kind of early episodes where all of us were still trying to figure out like exactly how we were like dynamically working together and like figuring out relationships and stuff. There is definitely that, like, when you're a younger-ish teenager and someone in your friends group gets a girlfriend or is like clearly interested in someone, and it's like the first time, you just tease the shit out of each other, and that's exactly what I felt here. And it's like, oh no.
Yep.
My favorite thing I think in that little interaction was Casey's like, is that really what you're doing? Well, I might be checking her out once in a while. just that's really what solidified that like teenage thought in my brain. Like, yeah, that's what we are. That's what we were in that moment.
Fuck. Yeah. And yeah, they cook and everything's like kind of nice. But then Demi arrives, and I found it very interesting how you're like, the air tenses up with magic, and you're like announcing her presence.
Yep.
This is like back when she was just like teeming with chaotic energy.
Yeah. So my thought process had always been that anyone who has like a significant amount of power, like above a certain level or are a particular type of creature, that they would exude magic almost all the time. Like you would feel it, like their presence is magic. And obviously, you know, there are people out there who are able to suppress that so other people don't notice, but Demi doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. Like there's a lot of like especially up to this point, this is probably the last point where we really see it like in a very obvious way of like how much of an ego she has around her magic, and about how powerful she is, and like how she can just like shrug things off and not really care. Like you see it much later on, like she has full confidence in her everything, which is very on key for her. But at this point, like it is very, very much on the sleeve, and it becomes a lot less on the sleeve after she sees the mirror, which is what she's about to go off and do. So like, yeah, and anyone with a significant amount of power, like I think it's also a really good indicator of like, yeah, this is someone who has power. You can feel it coming off them. Beware, this person is a danger.
Yeah. Now, when the team's like, oh, what are we going to describe to Demi, Sultana decides like, I'm not saying shit to her, and you really push her as Demi. Now the question here is, was that Demi being interested in Sultana, or was that V going, no, Casey, you do not get it out. You have to be part of this.
In those early days, it is almost always Demi. Because I think I mentioned this. I tried to do a bunch of outros as Demi, and I could not do it. I could not fucking do it. She just went. She is very much a person where I take the filter off the brain, especially in the early days, and just let it go. Yeah. It was really difficult because there are obviously plot points I needed to keep back, and at that point I definitely like step her back anyway. But no, this was very much like Demi trying to interact with Sultana. This wasn't me trying to get information out. I'm like, come on, let's be fun. I do remember listening back to that part of the episode when Demi arrives, and I'm like, she's on her own. No, she wouldn't be on. Oh, God damn it. It's because it's my abject fear of having too many NPCs in one place and having to talk to myself.
Yep.
But I decided to override my natural instinct and at least bring Caden. I didn't bring Linda in, which was also my plan.
I had it written down like the I've got to make my life easier. Just Demi standing outside. Fuck, I need Caden here.
Yeah, basically.
I thought it was so funny because, like, you still do this to this day. And I just got such a chuckle out of it. Just got so chuckle out of it.
Because you guys will make me talk to myself. I don't want to do that.
It's hilarious.
It's not.
But yeah, they have their, like, they chat with Demi, and Demi's like, magic, I own magic. And then she just runs off to go look in the mirror.
Yeah, that was a bad idea. That was such a terrible idea for her.
Oof, bro, buddy.
I hadn't decided exactly at that point what she had seen. And I kind of left it a little bit nebulous of what she would see in the mirror. Mm-hmm. But it definitely got solidified later on. But at this point, I had no idea what she was going to see. I'm like, nope, send her off. I knew it was going to be potentially bad when she looks into it, but fuck it, off she goes. Because again, I wanted her out of the goddamn scene. I'm like, no, I'm done. She needs to go.
You're probably like, I'm assuming your thought was probably like, okay, she's going to see something cataclysmic that's going to make her start taking this situation way more seriously. And as such, she was like engaged with the team in a different way. Like, I'm assuming it was something along those lines.
I think you may be giving me more credit than I deserved at the time.
Okay.
I knew it was going to be bad, but I had nothing more than that.
Like I haven't listened to the next 10 episodes, so I don't know how much it reels Demi in. So we'll see. And yeah, then we go on to the Ballas murder.
Yep.
And yeah, we've already chatted about that. After that, Sultana starts like harassing Caden because it's revealed that Caden was actually paid by Lafian's dad to take care of him or like keep an eye on him. Whether he was paid or not is like not said, but my assumption is always he got like a dowry of some amount of money, and it was just like, just make sure my kid doesn't just randomly get shaked. Like,
yeah, so very much like whichever prisons that he had been moved
dowry
to.
Is not the right word. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. But I'm happy to.
It was stipend.
Stipend. If anyone's gonna at you about it, like go fuck ahead. But like fuck you, second language. No, like, so I always had envisioned that in whatever prison that Lafian gets moved to, the higher-ups and someone trusted would probably know who Lafian actually is. Because, like, yeah, like, his dad doesn't want him dead. His dad wants him safe and away from the machinations of the Queen and away from Talvin, who is now also out to kill him, which had ever been part of his dad's plan. His dad's plan had never been that Talvin would turn on him and try and kill his son, but that's the situation he found himself in, like, you know. And so yeah, my intention was like his father, like after finding out what had happened and what was going on, that yeah, like he would make sure his son is okay. He still cares about him, still loves him very deeply. It's not anything that had changed, but you know, a panicked man who sees the bigger picture, like, I need to make sure this kid isn't here. So yeah, like my intention was always that at least someone in the prison system would know. And in this case, because Caden is considered a good person, like Lindgren would trust him to make sure that this kid doesn't get hurt. So yeah, well, that's kind of where that came about. So yeah, he would be paid a small amount, but never enough to worry about.
No. It's always just like like in today's money, it would be like $1,000. It's like it's enough to like really ease out your life for like a good amount of time.
Yeah,
like it's like £700. It's like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, it pays for like Taylor's like teaching at the Witcher Society.
Yeah,
like that's kind of as far as that money was spread, but it pays for that, so at least this kid can learn magic.
Yeah. Hope it wasn't a dowry. Sorry, my brain's still there.
You wilt marry my son? I don't think so.
But after he reveals that, Sultana starts like grilling him a bunch, and he kind of reveals all his little well, yeah, I knew who he was, and I know you're like a double one murderer, and
oh yeah,
and like you're a double one turned murderer, and the intensity with which Raul like starts harassing Sultana is
so good.
Great. I had completely forgotten about this scene, and it is fucking great. It's like this is a side of Raul you just don't see anymore. Like it is so like he is so more comfortable in his world now that like this intensity where like what was it that like I'm not a double one anymore. Like I've been killing them. Like you saw my fucking like murder, and I don't know if he says like show me the tattoo or something, but
show me the marks. Yeah,
show me the mark, and he just so intensely, and he just demands it. And Sultana's just like, fuck it, I'll show you my mark. And it's like you would not see Raul do something like this right now. Like this like.
Yeah, like definitely not now, but you do still see symptoms of it. Like, you know, Raul settles in with Lafian and Sultana, and then when Squash turns up, he becomes very aggressive towards Squash.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you noticed it. It may be because like first time round, maybe that's what you thought they were. I don't really know. But he becomes aggressive towards Squash. And then later on, when other people get involved that may hurt his friends in some way, again, Raul becomes very defensive. And that was something that Neil and I spoke about like for a while, is how defensive Raul is of the people that he cares about, because there's so few of them that bother to care about him. He's like instantly possessive and protective of those who do care about him. So like it's interesting to see right now in episode 11 like how visceral he is towards Sultana, like, you fucking what? Versus now, whereas like other people turn up and like Raul's a little bit less. I think it may be because he's more powerful and he knows he could instantly kill them.
Yeah. Kick their asses. Yeah, it's when you get a contract with the god of death, is you like a lot of other things stop bothering you.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like very intense, and I do remember the first time. Like I remembered the acid burning scene. I just had forgotten how fucking intense it was.
Yeah,
like,
the context of it, and like how it all came about. It's like, oh, that's so sweet. And like, obviously, like, there's no way that I could have planned for that. Like, that's all on Casey and Neil. Like, just fucking props. That entire scene is all them. Like, I had very little to do with it. Just just arbitrate their mechanics. Yeah. Like, that's it, really.
But you tell like how fucking in love with Ral Neil is at that point, because it's like he's describing it, and he's like, he's got his character and everything, and then he's like, okay, he like grabs his shirt to try to like mitigate the amount of like damage he's gonna do with acid, and then when he's gonna put the shirt back on, Neil's just like, as he's putting his shirt on, you can guys can like, now that he doesn't have it on, you can like tell like he's malnourished, he's clearly got like broken ribs that have healed incorrectly, and it's just such a like a, oh fuck! You've been in this character's head for a while, haven't you, buddy? Like that's intense.
Like and this isn't also not just Neil, but all four of you do it, all five of you, even Kessa also. Like you're all like really in it. Like you know your characters like back and forth, which you should. You should know your characters better than I do. Like you should be living in their brains, especially in a like if we put like the game aside, like as a performer, you should know your characters, and you know them far better than I do, and I'm always blown away by how like minutia focused sometimes you'll get, and this is a really good example of Neil like living so much in Rao's head that, you know, when he takes his shirt off, he can see the broken ribs, he can describe like how malnourished he is. It's like, that's a world building that I shouldn't be doing. I shouldn't be describing your characters to that level. But if you feel comfortable doing it, then that is definitely something that you guys do. And I think you also do that when, spoilers for future episodes, I think it's episode 70 or 80 or something, around the cat, bat and rat burglar episodes where everyone is in the sauna and you talk about like all the scars on Squash's body. Like you all do this. Like you're all really good at it.
We have an idea of what our character's supposed to look like.
Yes.
We think about our character naked all the time.
I'm going to say I don't, because there's too many NPCs for me to see naked.
That's a line. We would know it. It's a harem up there.
I know where everybody's piercings are. I'm just going to put it like that.
It's fucking bedlam up there. What's Caligula. I'm so shit.
No one's fucking horses in my brain, okay?
I'm so fucking shit at jokes that I just randomly shout out words I know roughly are relevant. But after that, moving on.
Please.
We go into Dragonmaw for the first time, I believe.
Yeah.
Which I am super happy with, because it is genuinely one of my like favorite. A lot about Ral I find insanely interesting. He brings you have. So not to talk down the other characters. You have Lafayette, who is an Alvin royal, and it's like, okay, that's like a kind of a standard fantasy thing. It's Legolas, but with a sad twist, like with a murderous twist, like a criminal twist. You have Sultana, who is like a criminal dwarf. And it's like, okay, that's a good twist. You got crime in there, like dwarven crime family. Like, okay, that's a really good twist. And then you have Rao, who's the Dragonborn. It's like, okay, you've already got the Dragonborn flair. But then it's like, nobody else really sees Dragonborn. So it's like, okay, that's super strange. So where are you from? Oh, I have sickness that is unique to my race. And it is so fundamentally tied to my race that one of my racial abilities is tied to my sickness. It's such a that's so good. That's so good.
It's because Neil loves playing the underdog. Neil loves playing characters that are like kind of fish out of waters, that are like, they have more going on with them than meets the eye as a standard. And he spends a lot of time thinking about, I mean, for Ral, I think that's partially also the the Way of the Long Death for monks. Like, that partly played into how that works. The fact that the Dragonborn really aren't seen out and about. They aren't supposed to be known, which I was like, you can play them, but this is a bad idea. And Neil was like, I want the bad idea. Give me. It's like, yeah, Neil plays like a really like interesting, like underdog fish out of water. He's always going to struggle. He loves playing those characters, and he plays them incredibly well, and he makes them more than just their struggle.
Yeah, he always plays very like reserved and strange characters, and I think he does it very well. But I genuinely I can't give you guys enough props for Dragonmaw, because it's just like, if I had just played with you with Squash that one time, and then I'd never done anything with TLD ever again, and I just would have gone back to my life, 100% I would have brought Dragon Moss into my home games, because I think it's such a cool idea. Yeah,
we get it a lot, like as a question, like through emails or Facebook or anything. I was like, hey, what's the mechanics of this? I'm like, I have to tell you, like, this is completely homebrew, and we're still testing it, even like 7 years later, man. Like, I'm not saying this is official, I'm not saying this is right, but this is kind of roughly what we're doing here.
Yeah. It's all around just like a fantastic thing. And I think his description of it is really good. He already like puts in like, oh yeah, if Aima had Dragonmaw, she would have had to go to a cold place because her internal temperature would have picked her life. So you're already like, oh, here are unorthodox ways to solve a problem that doesn't have a solution. It's like, oh, it's so good. Yep. It's all really well thought out.
Yeah, a lot of that is just Neil. Like, a lot of that, like, yeah, I put some mechanics in place, but almost all of that is Neil. Like, that's all down to him and his brain and the way he wanted to deal with his Dragon War. I'm like, no, this is great. I reined back a few ideas so that he didn't instantly just kill his character. But, like, generally speaking, this is almost all Neil.
But then, you have the description of Dragon Ball, and I think it's fucking amazing. And then you have Arch, who had just gotten, like, lesser restoration or something, like a really basic healing spell. He had gotten access to it.
Yeah.
And he wants to pop that off. And that fucking description, dude. That fucking description.
So I try and make a habit of not checking out everybody's character sheets, so I don't know what abilities or spells you have, because that keeps it fresh for me as a GM. It's not, I don't advise it. If you wanted to have balance in the game, not Lathian, but balance in the game, then don't do what I do. Always check what your characters have, check their hit points, make sure you know what kind of spells they do and don't have access to. I don't do that. I like to be surprised whatever the fuck you guys do, because you guys find stupid ways of overcoming my bullshit. And I kind of have a good feel on what is and what isn't a challenge, give or take, at least until I take the kid gloves off, and in which case, fuck you, Aberrus everywhere. I didn't expect Arch to have this. I didn't know it was a thing that Lathian could have. I wasn't prepared at all, but I was kind of prepared because I knew that paladins had access to similar kind of spells, and I knew that clerics existed in the world who had access to similar kind of spells. So I knew from the kickoff that if anyone tried to do something, that I would need to whip out hey, this isn't something that could be cured with a spell. Because that's just ridiculous. That completely negates his story, his idea. And as a character who cares about someone else, you would want to try. But as a GM, I have to be mindful that this is also another character's story and how they want to portray themselves. So I couldn't let that happen at the same time. So I was vaguely aware of if it comes up, I'll come up with something. I already know it's not just a simple disease. I know it's a result of a race being made too quickly and a deal with a deal with fate, I think is how I had originally phrased it in my notes. So I knew that it wasn't simple. When Arch threw that on me, I'm like, shit. I'll come up with something.
I'm proud of Arch also, knowing that me and him were big old rules lawyers. I'm proud of him being told it didn't work, and he's just like, all right, interesting. Because I know me, I would have been like, the book says it cures diseases.
Actually, and I'm going to push my glasses up here. There are some diseases written in various source books that say they cannot be cured by things like cure disease, So that shit does already exist in canon. I didn't know that at the time because I didn't read any fucking source books. So I just knew it wasn't going to be as simple as a cure or a spell. But later on, like, this is kind of a little bit how my brain works, is that at the time I'm like, yeah, I know why Dragonmore exists. I know that it's a result of Daemarius rushing a sentient species into existence so that ultimately when Marnak or when Kells goes bad, there are a bunch of people around who can, with a singular purpose, bring them down. So like, yeah, like I had that in my mind. But later on, when we started bringing Clemdale into the mix, we started bringing in like her job as like the goddess of paperwork. I'm like, yeah, that's the person you'd make the deal with. And then later on, like, you know, because a lot of these characters evolve as we go along, a lot of their backstories get fleshed out, and like, you know, Clemdale, the goddess of paperwork. Oh, yeah, no. Before then, like in the before times, before the apocalypse, she would have been the goddess of fate. And obviously fate now no longer exists in the way that it used to. This would be like a last hurrah of like, okay, so like this is a person she makes a deal with. And like this is one of the last things she does as fate is to create these things. So like I co-opted what was a nothing burger and made it into something else much later on. So like this is the seed, but what you hear later on is definitely in preparation for another like session, or like, oh, okay, I can take a seed that I dropped over here and turn it into something else over here, which is what I tend to do a lot. I just throw a bunch of spaghetti against the wall, and things that can be blossomed into something else later, that is, I will run with that and make it feel as seamless as possible.
That's a hell of a mixed metaphor.
Well, I didn't want to keep using the plant thing because I'm like, God fucking damn it. Like, we have to get off plants, guys. We have to. But then I did the pasta thing. I'm like, no, pasta doesn't grow into anything. It only grows mold. So that's a terrible idea.
So this deceased blossomed into a beautiful mold.
Yes. But if you mix metaphors aside, I think people understand what I'm saying.
I know. Yeah. No, it's just part of being a DM. And I think you do it like exceptionally well. And you have been doing it really well for 7 years now, dude.
Yeah.
And here's to another 7.
No. No.
Yeah. And it plays a it plays a song while you describe the failed heal attempt, and then the episode ends. And yeah, I think this is a solid fucking episode. Like genuinely, if I had to wait like 2 weeks for this episode to come out, I think you were bi-weekly back then.
I think we were weekly.
Already, like by episode 11. Oh boy.
We went weekly really quickly.
Oh boy. Yeah, you really like you really kick it off. Like, this is a good episode. I think all around it just has so much character and like intensity, and it's an hour and a half. It's an entire goddamn movie, but goddamn it, there's a lot in there. Like I had kind of forgotten what was in episode 11. I had like no real memory whatsoever of what was in 11. Like, I kind of remembered what was in 10 because it came immediately after Mirrors. Yeah. So this would have been like a second episode of a recording, because we did 10, 11, I think 12 in the same day. So like I had very little memory of this, and listening back, I'm like, oh my god, so many things, so many big things were covered here. Like, we talk about the murders that were committed. We dive into like other like NPCs' backstories. There's interactions, and also like we learn a little bit about Blood Rain. We learn a little bit about shaking the wrath and the tears of the god. We learn a little bit about that, what's going on here. We have direction about to happen. There are seeds getting dropped in this episode. Like, there's so much that happens here of what I completely forgotten as an episode. It's really actually a pretty good one. It's really intense. Yeah, I think that's about it. Unless there are any points you feel like I jumped over.
Do you know? I don't think so. I think propsing this music, which we did. Huzzah! Yes. We mentioned that I really dislike having multiple NPCs, and you can literally hear that in this episode in the same scene.
Neil didn't cut it.
Neil didn't cut it. Neil never does, which is funnier, and also, you know, it kind of gets you to see a little bit behind the scenes. And my undying love for how you'll interact with each other. Like, through them, we're really good.
What a fantastic fucking episode.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to say anything, or should I just dive into the outro?
I think dive into the outro. I think I'm good. I think that's the bulk of the episode.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. We're sorry, and Kino will be out soon. If you're binging through TLD like 10 years in the future, it's 2040. None of this makes sense to you. Like, the shit's already out. But huge thanks to everybody who's like helping us on Patreon. We appreciate it a bunch.
Thank you.
We do enjoy making Beyond the Eclipse, but it is a very much when we can, if we have time kind of thing. But tell us if you enjoy Beyond the Eclipse. Like, keep bugging us. It can be our little
apology /guilt / like enough if you email us like hey you want to do this or bug us on Discord. It's one of those things that we have to set aside the entire listening of an episode and also recording time, and we are quite busy people.
That is just half of your fucking day gone. Like, it's a Sunday and basically the day's just over. and we haven't even added in the episode yet, V.
It's okay. Neil has this, and then I'll get it, and then I'll do all the fancy cutting out of shit, and then I'll get that up on the feed. But yeah, thank you all so much for being patrons. We really do appreciate it. This kind of why this episode is going out at all. And also sorry that Kino and Dragon Seekers is going to be a little bit late. We do have the episodes basically cut and ready to go, but we don't want to tax Neil too hard. So think of our poor editor.
We do not rush things around here. Stay tuned. There are big, exciting things coming for Blighthouse in the coming months. It will happen this summer, I guess is what I should be able to say. Yeah?
Coming this summer. Yeah, so if you're binging this like in the winter, this is going to have happened already, or it's not going to make any sense.
Later today, if you're listening chronologically through everything, there's going to be a fun bombshell for you, dude. But for the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your summer.
All right, I think that's probably it then for us. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next Beyond the Eclipse.
See you guys in a year. Bye.
Bye. And a year. You're probably not wrong.